My name is Zach Cooper, and today I'll be discussing the broad model, which I will be presenting with the aid of my PowerPoint. In this PowerPoint and podcast style video, I'm going to be analyzing some examples of how the process of the broad model will be actualized. It is very important, this system, in that it saves time and money for the researchers involved. This integrative research is important in and of itself because it combines different disciplines into one solution. And not only is that better for, the world, as well as it also helps people further their careers. So today I'm going to be talking about the broad model, and it is going to be an interesting and short PowerPoint here. So the source of this material is from the Introduction to Interdisciplinary Studies textbook that I have been utilizing for a current class I'm in at Sam Houston State University. The authors, Repko, Stozak, and Buchberger, all collaborated on the book, but before the textbook was even created, Alan F. Repko created this model, the broad model. So the book is very interesting in and of itself. And at the end of it, we have the revelation of the broad model, which utilizes everything we had learned previously. So as you can see in the quote here, the broad model is an easy to follow roadmap of the interdisciplinary process consisting of step-like decision points. By breaking down the research process into discrete steps, the broad model enables you to confidently perform each part while keeping the big picture in mind. Now that's very important to have scope. That way you can not waste anybody's time, as I've stated previously. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about the steps here. We have 6 steps to properly preparing yourself to do a research paper or whatever process you may have, whatever you have established with other researchers. So before you get all the researchers together, you don't even know at some point you might get later on, you might decide which researchers to hire and or collaborate with. But at this point, we're just establishing what you're going to research and how your study will affect the world and make any changes. We're just putting relevancy into the ideals. So we'll start with a problem and we'll move on to finding the understanding of how we're going to get to a great solution. So step 1 is to define the problem or state the research question that you have at hand. And step 2 is going to be to justify using an interdisciplinary approach, which I have stated as being an overarching and totally encapsulating process that you are going to fully weaponize your arsenal, so to speak, of the researchers that you have at hand. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the example 1. I'm going to quickly burn through this. We're going to basically rate how this person, Kathleen A. McKay, did by utilizing steps 1 and 2. So nurse burnout is a problem that continues to plague the medical community. While it has always been an issue in the nursing profession, it has become profoundly difficult for researchers to find any real solutions. Burnout is an extremely complex issue with varying levels of degree. Also, the type of burnout a nurse experiences may differ with a particular clinical environment, such as an emergency room, psych unit, or oncology hospice unit. To address the problem effectively, it is necessary to understand what burnout is and the reasons why it is so prevalent in this profession. Using an interdisciplinary approach to study why nursing burnout happens, it is important for medical professionals and administrators in order to understand the problem and propose a more comprehensive solution to it. The importance of researching and addressing the issue of nurse burnout is vital to the future of our country's healthcare system. According to the Journal of American Medical Association, 40% of hospital nurses have burnout levels that exceed the norms of healthcare workers. This is an alarming statistic. Ignoring this issue can have devastating consequences not only on the macro level, but on an individual level as well. Nurses who are experiencing burnout may suffer tremendously, both psychologically and physiologically. But it is not just the nurses that are suffering. It's the patients who are under the care of these nurses who ultimately pay that price. Nobody wants their loved one to be cared for by a nurse who isn't performing at the peak level. Nursing shortages are on the rise and are only predicted to worsen. The American Association of College Nursing reports that despite the current easing of the nursing shortage to the recession. The U.S. nursing shortage is projected to grow up to 260,000 registered nurses by 2025. Multiple polls and research affirm that nursing shortages in the workplace influence the delivery of healthcare in the United States and negatively impact patient outcomes while increasing medical mistakes. As importantly, nursing shortages lead to added stress in the workplace. While it is easy to blame nurse burnout on shortages, it is a legitimate factor and is the only reason. Using an interdisciplinary approach to study this problem is appropriate, but the problem is multifaceted. This approach allows for a comprehensive perspective and provides a broader framework with strict boundaries. So my reaction to that is very positive. I think that not only are they amplifying the need for interdisciplinary roles, I think that she puts relevancy and scope to the problem at hand by referencing the influence that the nurses will have on the patients. So let's go back and look at, like, let's say a grading scale of how it would be. So did the author define the problem and state the research question? I would say absolutely yes. Clearly define the scope of the study? Yes, as well, because the define the scope is definitely a factor in her second paragraph. So I would say that yes, again. The author avoids the three tendencies that counter interdisciplinary process. We don't want to, so when we're doing an interdisciplinary study, we don't want to get bogged down by the jargon and just not details, but necessarily like hypersensitive material relative to that field. So we want to make it easy to digest, and I think the author did that. And then she also answered the so what question. She put the relevancy on it, saying that this interdisciplinary approach is appropriate. And you see that in the final paragraph. So for step one, this person has absolutely done a great thesis here on why we need to do more research into this topic. And she definitely, at step two, just to speed it up a little bit, she definitely justified why an interdisciplinary approach is necessary. So we're going to jump into step 3 and 4, which is identify the relevant disciplines and conduct a literature research. So given the process the task at hand, we're going to use a different example. So for this one, we're going to identify the relevant disciplines and conduct a literature research. So let's see. We're going to talk about A. Dole, the author who is going to be wanting to research globalization and its effects on the environment. 3 disciplines help us to understand the relationship between globalization and effects on the environment. The first is economics, which is concerned with the production, consumption, and transfer of wealth. A company expands globally to maximize profits by lowering the cost of production. The second discipline is environmental science, which draws on physics, chemistry, and biology in order to explain the effects of several elements that are generated and released into the atmosphere. It helps us understand how the environment is affected when manufacturing plants emit toxic waste elements into the atmosphere. The third discipline is sociology, which is defined as the study of structure, development, and functioning of human society. Corporations have not limited themselves to a certain country or group of countries. Because of this, whenever a corporation decides to outsource its production plants overseas, there are several effects on the population of that country. So, does this paper identify the relevant disciplines? Absolutely. Now, I like how this broad model gives me the option of potentially relevant problems, because if I was going to utilize this process, I wouldn't want to be stuck in a box. I like the fact that it opens it up by saying potentially. And now, does the author narrow these into the most relevant? Yes, I think he does. He somewhat gives himself an argument, and it seems like he's thought about this a lot. So it sounds like this person has done the research already, and I do like how they have phrased it. And of course, this is a hugely important subject. So, and the question is, does he connect this one large phenomenon together? And I think he does connect it very well. Between the 3 here, we have economics, environmental science, and sociology. So those 3 factors definitely weigh, and I would love to get further research done with 3 experts in the field. That's my most intriguing part of this, is being able to reach out to different research experts and have them bring in their insights, and for me to be the one who collaborates and brings it all together. It's a great integrative studies is a great opportunity to reach into each different sector of the world and have a profound impact. So the next step is going to be to conduct a literature search. And, pardon me, and he hasn't done that. We can assume he has later on, but in this paragraph, he has not done that. And that literature search is very important. It's going to reveal overemphasis as if it's already been done. So by not putting in that he has done a literature search and showing his comments, we're assuming that he has, but we don't know for sure. He hasn't put any credibility into that yet. So let's move on to the fifth and sixth example, which is to critically, so the fifth example is to critically, or fifth step in the broad model is to critically analyze the interdisciplinary insights into the problem and locate their sources of conflict. So this is going to be very important into proceeding and establishing a thesis. I still like to call it a thesis because you're really just preparing yourself and your team to be successful. So for the fifth and sixth step, we're going to be examining how Ria van de Leck has broken it down in these 3 paragraphs here, and she's discussing her phrasing is why we talk, an interdisciplinary approach to the evolutionary origin of language. So she's going to reflect on this, and I'm going to go ahead and read the 3 paragraphs. In this interdisciplinary study, we have developed a comprehensive theory explaining the primary function of language in an evolutionary framework. The original aim of this project was to integrate insights on the origin and development of language, but a preliminary literature search, revealed that this would be overly ambitious. Many scientists have studied language for many years, with the result that literature is enormous. The focus on this question, why we talk, made the task manageable. Okay, I like that first paragraph. She's being humble, and she's going to go ahead and digress, and then also refocus on a certain aspect of this broad topic, which is very important and a very astute, let's see here, problem-solving task in its own right. So the second paragraph states, according to our new theory, the most likely function for which language emerged is social bonding, but once the possibility of linguistic communication had emerged, its primary function may have differed for different individuals, as it does today. Language is used for the exchange of very complicated thoughts, but it also serves as a bonding instrument in various contexts, social as well as political. Further study might fruitfully examine the role of reciprocal altruism in emergence of speech. The focus of this study was one aspect of the origin of language. The question of why we talk. There is, however, a rich diversity of perspectives regarding all aspects of language, its nature, its origin, how and when, and its development. Interdisciplinarians interested in language can use their integrative skills to create more comprehensive understanding on all its aspects. So, in regards to step 5, I think she did identify the key elements of the most important disciplinary insights of the problem. By critically analyzing her own previous literature search, she was able to narrow her source of conflict, and that is very important, as well as to not waste time and money of other researchers who may not have to be collaborating because they've already done the research before. So, does the author compile a table that sets out how the insights form contributing disciplines into integrated studies? Let's see here. I don't think she did that part, but as I said in the last example, this is obviously just a preface to the theory and the research theory that she's going to solve. So I'm going to go ahead and give her a pass on that. So step 6 is reflect on how using an interdisciplinary approach has enlarged your understanding of the problem. And I think it's pretty obvious that she is going to. But once again, these aren't the best examples, I don't think. But these are very strong elements that support her argument. and she is definitely poised to have a great study. So let's go to 6.1. How does the interdisciplinary approach challenge his or her bias on the problem? I think that it was definitely a broader subject before she brought in the interdisciplinary matter, which is interesting. You think that being integrating would narrow the scope and that everybody would kind of focus in one area, but the fact that has focused, has the more time and effort you put in, I think the larger the scope will become. So I think that yes, she has successfully utilized the broad model in this case, and it has enlarged the problem and her understanding of it as a whole for definitely. So I think all three of these examples were very good at utilizing the broad model. And I think even you can utilize this broad model to be successful in your future research projects. So let's just refresh it one more time. Step one, we're going to identify that problem. And when you do so, try to think of it as not a problem, but as potential solution. That helps a lot. If you put yourself into a box of thinking of only problems, you're never gonna really get any new material. There's always problems in the world, but if you think of think of it's hard to think of brand new. If you think of technology, it's hard to think of brand new innovations. But if you think of like this light here, you could think, wow, I could innovate and make this light better. You could make it better in a lot of different ways, more energy efficient. You could change the color, the bulb, all of that good stuff. So I think if you start with something that's already been solved, tweak it, you're going to find a lot of problems. That's just my thought on step one. Step two would be justifying an interdisciplinary approach. And that's definitely important when you're trying to sell yourself or sell your project to, say, a school that's going to be investing in it. It's going to be very hard to sell a project by yourself. So bringing in an integrated team is definitely going to help give you credibility in their eyes. So that's another reason why interdisciplinarians do what they do, even though it's been a hard road for us. Schools like to give grants only to disciplinarians. Obviously, they've spent their whole life on one thing. They're going to be subject matter experts, but I digress. Step three, identify relevant disciplines. This is super important. In my experience, it's been very hard to localize your problem. The more you do it, the better you will become. So I recommend just practicing it'll come a lot easier once you just open your mind to the opportunities before you. Conducting a literature search is something you do every day. You just don't realize it. So that's going to be an easy step for anyone who's trying to actuate the broad model. Step 5 and 6 coincide slightly. Both are extremely important. And I think that the examples that we use for that about the language is very interesting. That the person, well, I chose that example, and I think it was a great representation of how you can properly use it. So I thank you for your time, and I do hope that the broad model can be used to success of yourself and to anyone else watching. Have a good one. Bye now.